Scraps can be a real problem in our studios, can't they? Well, I have a secret weapon and I want to share it with you today. We're starting a new series using scraps, and it's going to be every Thursday until the end of the year. And we're going to do Christmas cards, Halloween cards, fall cards. Last year, I challenged myself, and it was about this time, to use up all of the scraps in my studio, and I have made a huge dent in my scraps. So in this series, I'm going to show you how I store my scraps, how I use my scraps, and my secret weapon. So come on in and let me show you. Hello everybody, it's Julia Laird with Senior Susie Stamps, and this is my secret weapon. It's my book of card sketches. Let me show you. These are originally from Operation Right Home Bloggers Circle, and there's a link, and I'm going to post it in the description below the video, that is a PDF file for you to go and print them if you like. Now, I have these in a notebook. They're easy to handle, they're easy to deal with. If I spill something on them, I can wipe them off. And these OWH card sketches have the measurements on them, and that's why I consider this to be my secret weapon for using scraps. Let me show you some examples here. These are some Christmas cards that I've been working on. And this one is sketch number 75. Now, I had started with these 3/4 inch strips. That's all I had. And so I found a sketch that I could use them, and I think they worked beautifully in that. Now, I did emboss the back, and I used some Whisper White pigment ink on the snowflakes, embellishments, and that card is done. And it uses sketch number 75. Let me show you a couple more before we get started. The process that I use is to determine which scraps I'm going to get into today, and then I'm looking, and on this one it's sketch number 122. This is the format for the sketch, and I followed this one pretty well exactly on it. Now, when I store my scraps, I don't separate them out from the original paper packs because, for example, on this card, I needed this back sheet to really make the card pretty, and all I had were these two little tiny scraps to work off of. So I did go and cut a new piece of paper to use this for the backing, to use up these two scraps. That's another key to using scraps. Sometimes you have to cut a piece of paper to use a scrap. Don't be afraid of doing that, because eventually you're going to learn how to use scraps and really look forward to using them. I got one more sample, hang on, and it's this one. And you'll notice that it's sketch number 125 in the book. So I encourage you all to go to that link that I've got down below and print yourself off a set, get some heavyweight sheet protectors and a good notebook, and this notebook will be good as gold in your studio. I promise you this. Now, I do have some other card sketches in the back, and I look at these more for just layout theory and design. I don't use them for scraps that much because they don't have the measurements on them, and that to me is very, very helpful. Now let's get into making a few cards today. Let's see how the process started on this one. I had these 3 pieces of paper here, and this one's 2 1/4 by 6. This is a 2 1/2 by 4 1/4, and 2 by 5 1/4. And then I had these little embellishments, and I found some holly in my stash, and then I went ahead and made a first layer card base to work up on. And while I was looking for something as a little extra, I found this nice piece of paper that was striped with hollies, and I just cut a tiny little strip of it. So we're going to use number 2 right here. Super, super simple card to make. Now, I need to get my cutting cutter out, my guillotine cutter. And this, remember, was 2 1/4, so I'm going to cut it to 2 by 5 1/2. Wouldn't have to. You could use this as is, but I have an idea for a little inside embellishment, and so I'd like to have that little strip. And then this needs to be 5 1/2. So that leaves this little scrap right here, and I'm going to set that aside. So this is the first one. Now the second one is 2 1/2 by 3 1/2. So I'm going to trim this just a tiny bit. And then I'm going to make this a layer. So I'm going to cut that to 2 by 3 1/4. And make a layer for this. Let me see. I think I'll trim this back just a little bit to 2 1/4. I didn't quite have 2 1/4 of that green one. So there we go. When you're working off of card sketches, my advice is this: use them as a jump point for your card making. And if you have 2 1/4 by 3 1/2 or 2 1/4 by 4, cut it down to where it's a good size for you to use, and then use it. Because these scraps are every bit as expensive per square inch as, let me bring this back. They're every bit as expensive per square inch as a full full sheet of paper is. Let's get this glued down. The other thing about scraps, and we'll get into this a little later in the series as we go along, is embellishments. I always have an eye open for an interesting embellishment that might go with some seasonal paper that I'm working on, and I could just go ahead and buy it and add it to my stash, and then when I get to that point, they're there, and I've got lots of variety. I think variety is the key to embellishing cards made with scraps. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue these two into a nice layered up piece. And we're going to place them on the card. And I'm going to try to make these 3 borders approximately the same. Before I glue it down, I want to get my embellishment because it's a little off kilter here, but I think that's going to work okay. And I want to use this piece somewhere in the mix. So here's where the adventure of card making comes into play. And so I was thinking about something about like that, and then maybe using these hollies as an accent. So I'm satisfied with that. Let me go ahead and get this put down. These papers are a little different weight, but I don't think that's going to be noticeable in the end at all. One of the reasons that I keep my paper with the original is because, as I mentioned, sometimes you have to pull a full sheet and cut it in order to use your scraps. But also, sometimes I have colored cardstock that goes with the original, like this, for example. And I wouldn't have access to that if I separated my papers all out. So to me, it just makes a big difference in being able to use my paper scraps. Okay. This is just a little tag that was a cut apart and I put it up on some heavyweight white paper, put some foam on the back of it and some twine on it. And now it makes a really cute embellishment to go on this card. I'm going to put this one down flat because I think I'm going to put the bird up on some foam tape as well. And I think it'll work just fine. Bringing this down just a little bit and giving a little extra on the top surface there. See, it's a little bit bigger up here than it is down here. So now I'm going to put this one up on a little piece of foam. Get my tweezers. You knew that was coming, didn't you? Okay, I'll set this over here on the side. Get my little holly embellishments. They'll kind of tie the card all together for me. I don't know where these came from, but I suspect they came from Hobby Lobby. That's my guess. Now I need a little sentiment, and that's what I thought this little piece right here would be good for. So I need to find a little small Merry Christmas. This is one of my little magnetic stamps out of my Word stamp kit. I've shown you that before, and it makes a nice little embellishment to go on this card, I think. So I'm going to glue that up and put it right there. And that uses that tiny little scrap. I'm going to bring this all the way to the edge and try to get it centered up with that point right there. There, and that card's done. Now I am going to put this little strip and this strip on the inside over here. So let's get that done. And that uses these little strips up rather than having to put them back in storage. I'm going to leave myself just a tiny little border. And this one is so narrow, I am going to use my glue bottle for that. And it's going to be a little tiny bit too long, but we'll trim it off along with the other one. So now, all I need to do is get my sentiment on the inside, and this card's done. I'm going to trim these little tails off, and we'll move on to the second card. There it is. Hey, I wanted to break in for just a minute and ask you, if you like the content on this channel, would you please like and subscribe? We are almost to that 1,000 subscriber mark, and I'm hoping to get there by the end of this month. So if you'll help me out, I appreciate it. But only do it if you really like the content and you're going to come back and visit with me again. Thank you. Okay, I've got two cards here to make. This one we're going to use number 40, and it is somewhere here. Where'd it go? Right here. Number 40. This is the one for that. And then this one is all these little tiny elements here, and it's going to be number 148, which is right here. And let's start with that one because I think it's going to be the easiest one to get finished. I've gone ahead and put some coordinating cardstock on the front of my card to build this card up, and I cut it to these dimensions, and then I decided I wanted the border, so I cut a 1/4 inch off and an 1/8 off of the top and the bottom, so that the proportions are still the same. So let's get these elements out here. And this card started with just these 3 scraps and this little embellishment that I made and this little tag. So I've gone ahead and made an extra white tag. I used my Christmas stamp. This is a 1/4 inch rounder and that tag topper die from, punch from Stampin' Up, and I've got it foamed up. Now this little tag here swings free, so it'll give some motion to the card. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get it put on the card. And I think I'm going to angle it a little bit, just because I like that look. And you can always vary from your card sketch and do whatever you want to with it. Don't feel constricted in these. Now, I know this doesn't go with the paper, but I found it and it goes well enough with the paper for me, so I'm going to glue that down. I've made these little bows enough times on the channel that I think you all probably know how to do that, but if you need me to show you again, just leave me a little comment and I'll be happy to do my bow making on screen rather than doing it as prep work. Now this little piece here is a 1 by 1 inch square. Most people would throw that out. I chose not to. And look, it's very usable here with this little embellishment. Now this was a cut apart and I glued it up on, I think, 3 pieces of 110-pound cardstock. It's got a piece of foam on the back, and then I went in last night and put some of this glossy highlights from Spectrum Noir, and I have a little squeegee that I put on my cutter and made a nice straight edge, and I just put that on like that. Now it takes a while for it to dry, so I've gone ahead and done that and getting it ready for us today. So let's go ahead and get these put down and you'll see how quick this card comes together. Celebrate the season. And all I want to do is cover up those 2 points right there. And that's the front of that card done. Now I probably will go back and add some gems to this. I don't have any purple gems that I know of. I've got to order some, so I'll finish that card a little later. But this piece is going to be used on the inside of this card, just right up here as a little embellishment, and that uses that scrap for us. And we're almost ready for the very last card for today. Let me know if you are excited about this series, because I really am. I love making cards from scraps. I know that's crazy, but over the last year, I have really enjoyed it. And I especially enjoy using my card sketches as a jump point for my cards. So this is card number 2. Let's look at card number 3. These were the 2 pieces that I started with. This one's 2 1/4 by 6, and this is 2 by 6. It's double-sided paper, and I kind of struggled with which side to use, but I think we're going to use this side this way. And I found these coordinating die cuts, and this one says, if snowflakes were hugs, I'd send you a blizzard. Is that not cute? I think it is. Okay, this is going to be number 40 right here, this one. So 2 1/4 by 5 1/4, and I'm going to make that 2 1/4 by 5 1/2 because I don't have any paper stock pulled to make the border. 2 1/4 by 5 1/2. Let's check that and just make sure. And that's what it is. Good. And then this one is going to be 1 3/4 by 5 1/2. Now let's see what that is. It's 2. So I'm going to cut just a little, and I think I'll cut a little off of this side. 1 3/4. That'll give me a nice little strip to go on the inside of that card if I need one. And we're going to use this to replace the big square here. So let's get this glued up onto a card. I think I'll put this on a top folding card here. Hey, let me know in the comments if you want to see my new organization spot up here, because I'm thrilled with it. I can only tell you that. Let's see, I believe this is going to be just a little narrow. So it's going to have a white border going down the sides. I'm fine with that. If I had thought about that, I would not have cut that little extra piece off. But I didn't. And we're working with it. I've been going through and sorting paper this week and getting everything labeled up and identifying which boxes have a few scraps left in, and I was surprised at how few Christmas scraps I actually have left this year. I made all of my Christmas cards last year out of scraps, except maybe 2. So that was about 155 Christmas cards out of scraps. So that should give you an indicator on just how many scraps I actually had in my studio. So I have been negligent in using my scraps for several years, and this is the year that I decided I was no longer going to be that way. Now, I believe I'm going to put this up on foam tape. That's the thing to do. But I had these 2 little pieces of blue, and so now I'm wondering whether that would really kind of help tie the blue in with that. And I think I'm going to cut this in half. I'm going to use my little jig here that I use for cutting weird things like this, and that way I know it's 2 and this is a 1/2 inch, so I'm just going to cut this at 1/4 inch, and it'll give me 2 nice 1/4 inch pieces that way. Do you follow me? There we go. I keep that over by my desk and I use it all the time for cutting things like this. So now I'm thinking something along the lines of this might be pretty on that card, and I think we'll move this up a little. There we go. I like that. Let's see. I'm going to put some glue here just to get this glued onto my strip here. I think I'll put that right, and move that. I'll put that right on the line that way. That way I can kind of get things a little even here. And I'm going to try to put it just to where there, just at that corner right there and there, I think. I have to put a snowflake there, won't I? That's okay, I don't care. I was going to put some snowflakes on this anyway. And I believe we'll do the same with this one. Not like that. Looks like I got just a tiny little bit of washi tape stuck on that. Pull that off. There we go. Now, I think we're good. I'm going to go ahead and put some glue on this. these 2 strips, and then on here. There we go. Let me know if you have a favorite on these cards. I'm not sure I do. I'm going to try to get that kind of in the middle of the card. I could come this way just a touch. There. At some point in time last year, I discovered these nice little carriers that I have been putting my embellishments in seasonally. So I got Christmas all fixed, and you'll be seeing them over the next couple of months for sure. And I have to say, I really like this system. It gives you a lot to choose from at any point in time, and so I drag them out often. I think that one needs to be a little smaller. We'll put the big one down here, and the smaller one's kind of up there. How about that? Yep, I'm kind of liking that. Okay. Now, if I recall, these are a little hard to peel off. Nope, they work great. I like to tie elements together when I can with my embellishments. So that's what we're doing there. And again, I'm going to do the same thing up at the top here. Just touch them. And that kind of gives a little extra cohesiveness to the card. I don't know. Nope, I like it with just the 2. That's what we're going with. Now, I had an extra piece of cardstock, and then I've got these little pieces of cardstock. So I'm wondering about maybe doing something like that, and then these will go in the trash. In the trash. They'll go in the trash. Okay. And for a good day's work, I'm happy about that. There we go. I'll trim this out. And this one will go across the bottom here. What do we think about that? I'm still not feeling the love on that. Sorry. This is the way it goes in my studio. I just enjoy being creative, but I like to have a little jump point sometimes. It's helpful. Now, everybody makes a bunch of strip cards out of scraps, and I love them too, and I make my fair share of them. But I hope you have learned a little bit today about using, there's a finished card, and I'll get the sentiment put in it. I hope you have learned a little bit today about using card sketches to your advantage to making scrap cards. So I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next Thursday, and we'll find something else to do. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.